Tech table. Tech table. Tech table.
Hello and welcome to the Tech Table, the Technical Staff and Theatre Workers podcast. It's the podcast in which I talk to people who work in the technical side of the industry about how they got in, their experiences and any advice they can give to anyone getting in. This is episode 7 of season 5. Wow, really flying through this episode. We've had some great download numbers, some fantastic feedback. Really happy with it. Long may it continue. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell anyone you know who's interested in theatre and anyone who's not interested in theatre, because it might make them interested in theatre. If you'd like to get in touch via the socials, it's Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, Threads and YouTube are all Tech Table Pod. So give us a search, give us a follow. If you want to get in touch on the email, it is techtablepod@gmail.com. And yes, send us some feedback, send us some questions, send us anything really just to say hello. So without further ado, let's see who is sitting at the tech table with me today. I'm here with my two guests at this time. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and tell me what your current job titles are.
Hi, my name's Mig, and I am a senior lecturer at the Guildford School of Acting and currently co-chair of the ABTT, Association of British Theatre Technicians.
And hello, my name is G, or Gareth, or just G, and I'm a lecturer in theatre production, specialising in sound and video at Guildford School of Acting.
And of course, you are my executive producers.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently so.
Yes. Yes, and you're here to talk about the Make a Difference conference, the ABTT Make a Difference conference, which I spoke about in a earlier episode of the podcast, which might not be on there anymore because I've had to re-record all the episodes. But there you go. And it has an interesting title, which you're going to tell me what it was now.
So this year it was Rethinking Backstage Technical Teaching and Apprenticeships with and for Industry. That was the title for this year's conference.
Right, and what does that mean?
Well, for me, it was really exciting. It basically just means we sort of didn't start with a rule book. We just went, how can we re-look at teaching technical theatre? But for me, it was exciting because rethinking means
Redoing it.
Yeah.
And this was to help try and bridge the gap between the teaching side of it and the actual being in industry.
Well, it was about looking at the pipeline as well. So it's looking at what the journey is of not so much the label of student and graduate and professional, but actually the human that kind of goes through that process.
Yeah.
Trying to get people away from this idea of thinking of it as I'm in education, I'm in industry, and making people realise that industry includes education and training. And education and training is everything from formal education, such as drama schools or colleges, through to apprenticeships, through to on-the-job training. It's all part of that same wider industry.
And we're all learning every day. We all
Absolutely.
learn something different.
We actually changed the language as well, which you might like. I put this infographic up because to me, industry, what I said was that on one side you've got education, on the other side I changed it to employment.
Right.
And then basically what I said to both sides is you're both industry.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
so rather
absolutely.
than saying education and then that's it, you just transition into industry and that's the end of it, I said no, it's education and employment and holistically.
Yeah, you're part of the same. You're under the same umbrella.
So it was quite frustrating on the day, wasn't it? Because I was quite militant about making them change the language of it as well.
One of my jobs seemed to be wandering around and intimidating people into using the appropriate language.
The correct verb.
But it seemed to sink in by the end of the day, and hopefully the importance of that point began to sink in as well. And it changed people's perspective on how they started to think. Instead of thinking of us and them mentality, thinking about integrating and holistically bringing together these different areas of the journey.
Yeah.
There was a very strong introduction which brought us back to this idea of the artisan, about people learning their trade, and before when they finish learning their trade, they don't automatically go up into this position of being a master of their trade. They go on this whole long journey
to continue learning the trade.
Absolutely. and that learning doesn't stop just because someone has gone into an employed role.
It's a little bit like when I learned, obviously being a sound operator, when I learned to mix a show, a sound designer once said to me, you don't learn to mix a show until you've learned to mix the show. Meaning, until you've learned the basics, who goes where, what faders you put in where, then you can actually listen to it and learn to actually mix it and get it to how it needs to be dynamically. And it's the kind of a very similar thing. Is you don't, just because you come out of education, one doesn't mean you know everything, because nobody knows everything. But also, it doesn't mean you know nothing. But you then continue to learn the process as you go.
Well, interestingly, that came up, didn't it? And so, obviously, what happens is G and I facilitate discussion. It's great. But they do all of the legwork on the day. And what comes up is that, obviously, you can talk about you can talk about apprenticeships, you can talk about the fact that me and G teach at university. But actually, what are we calling it? We call it CPD, or what's that stand for? I can't remember now.
Continued professional development.
Continued professional development. But that's the other thing, is that because we've got these university degree courses now, I think the employment sector think that, wicked, they've done 3 years, they've paid all their money to go to university, that's it. It's like their commitment to develop humans stops. Do you know what I mean? So it becomes that person's personal responsibility. So what came out of the conference was, what is the employment sector offering to take you from entry level to slowly becoming that master?
No, absolutely. Also, I found in my experience, and actually one of the reasons why this podcast came about, is that while there are some schools who are very active in bringing forward that link between university and work, as you put it, there are a lot of schools and colleges that aren't, and there are a lot of schools and colleges that are, the lecturers have not actually worked in the industry for a long time, and the industry is so different now as to how it used to be. And so there are a lot of graduates coming out and are struggling because they've not had that link. And so they don't really know. There's etiquettes that aren't being taught. There's, and there's all different kinds of things that aren't being taught, and they've not had that link between that and the actual industry. And
You've
so
probably just summed up the whole conference, I would say. So that was essentially why we came up with it as a concept.
I think Make a Difference as a concept actually came about because of the invisible, unhad conversations, the lack of appropriate expectations between all parties. So whether it was the expectation of the employer, the expectation of the young person, the expectation of someone in the middle of that journey about where they can go or what they should know and have that confidence. Each year the Make a Difference conference has happened, we've had a different room full of assorted people and try to have these conversations.
Yeah.
Hence why Make a Difference. And it's always been, Mig's been really strong in pushing this, action-led. The whole point of it wasn't just to talk about it.
Yeah, you'll like this. It's run by technicians. So those conferences that you go to where there's 6 people on a panel that talk at you for, I don't know, an hour or something, or even longer sometimes. Like, I've got attention issues, so I just thought what would happen if I created my own conference? One where people don't talk at me, but actually the whole conference
is just a big discussion.
It's just flipped, completely and utterly flipped. So what G and I do is we there's a little bit of provocation at the beginning, but they're capped.
Yeah.
Well, they're like 10 minutes, aren't they? And G will go on with a hook and pull you off if you talk for too long. So there's a bit of provocation just to get people going, and then you have to come to a pre-conference, which is a 1-hour online thing. And again, that's just a carrot dangle the concepts at you so that you're not coming in, you've thought about it before you come in. And then it's all just breakout rooms. So they go into breakout rooms, and it's we talk about accountability partners, don't we? Yeah. So we literally they don't sit down for very long. They go and meet someone else. And again, it's about someone from the education sector meeting someone from industry or from the employment sector. We also have outreach people as well. That's the third key in all of this. So we've got people that come from that kind of outreach sector, and and yeah, they all just meet each other and bridge that gap, really.
Explain what the outreach sector is.
So I've got another really cool infographic for this. I might put that on the socials for you. But so basically, if you look about the talent pipeline, you've got the education sector, however broad that might be, apprenticeships, formal training, whatever. Then you've got the employment sector.
Yeah.
But actually, there's a chapter before that, which is what your podcast is all about, is that outreach sector. It's about how do you get a young Mig interested in lights?
Right, yeah.
Yeah? Or a young Bram interested in sound, yeah? And my frustration was born out of that. I would say the employment sector would say it's the responsibility of education to do that, right. Maybe, because they need to work on that in order to get their market area. But I disagree. I think it's everyone's responsibility.
It's the industry's responsibility.
It's the industry's responsibility to go back to that talent pipeline and go, how do we get that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also accessibility, isn't it? Because when I came out of college, theatre wasn't ever even on my radar. I didn't even know it was a thing. So it's getting younger people to realise, and this is pre-university, I might be getting younger people to realise that theatre is a thing, and technical theatre especially is the thing. It's not just people prancing around in costumes. There's a whole other aspect that a lot of people don't understand or realise, and it's kind of getting that to those people. And
it's quite fascinating being at a drama school. GSA is the third drama school that I've taught at over the last 10 years, and interviewing young people who want to come on the course or doing these outreach events. The majority of young people I would say we interview have come at it through either being an audience member in a show and then discovering organically through their GCSEs, their A-levels, that actually this is potentially a career, and usually not until fairly late in the process, or having gone through the community amateur dramatics side of things, performance, or actually very, very small amount of production. And that's always what surprises me, is that a lot of the community groups, seemingly, from the stories we hear from the young people that we interview, a lot of the community groups seem to ring-fence their technical opportunities and don't necessarily have a pipeline of younger people taking place. Hence why a lot of the ones we get are performance converts, especially in stage management. So if nothing else, if these podcasts give people other ideas, it would be that everyone has an opportunity to open their doors to production.
Absolutely.
Whether that's a professional show, whether it's a community production, or anything else in between.
I could give you a bit more context on that actually as well. So there is facilities are a problem.
Yeah.
So access to backstage or production learning, this is going to sound a little bit political in the sense that if you go to a school with the facilities to offer that, then you're going to be exposed to it. But if you don't, then you're not going to get exposed to it. The other thing is that currently backstage teaching, production or technical teaching, is considered an arts subject.
Right. Yeah.
And not a STEM subject, which is science,
technologies, engineering, and maths.
Yeah, which I disagree with. Yeah. Do you think, I'm a lighting technician? You're living in Lululand if you don't think that's physics.
Well, we're sound engineers.
It is physics.
Yeah,
it's absolutely physics.
So I get. I fundamentally I get the arts, theatre arts on stage maybe, but to deny that I'm not technical and that I'm not part of a STEM subject is ridiculous. So there's a lot of work in that particular area that we need to do to educate people.
We do, especially with the cuts in arts funding as well.
Yeah. There's been a very good movement over the last 8 to 10 years of people trying to push this idea of STEAM, and it's not just something which has come from
explain
the arts
that
sectors.
Go on, explain
so
that.
STEAM is putting the arts in the middle of a STEM subject. STEAM. I can't spell.
STEAM.
Oh, I love when I can't spell on. Just remember, kids, you too can be a lecturer without the ability to spell.
That's right. Well, you're an arts lecturer, so you're all right.
Absolutely. It's putting the arts in the middle of STEM,
Right.
hence this idea of STEAM. I went to, and this might sound tangential, but it is relevant, Farnborough Air Show last year. And I went in on the education day to kind of see how people were promoting the subject. And the majority of stands that were promoting young people weren't asking for straight STEM. They were asking and emphasising STEAM.
Right.
They wanted people with creative thinking. They wanted people who can work outside the box and come up with original ideas. So that's something that's gone out of the arts and into engineering. So there's no reason why we in the arts can't own that a bit more.
Well, absolutely. Also, things like automation. You can't tell me automation's not engineering. Of course it's engineering. It's
Well,
more engineering than a lot of engineering.
If there's any automation people listening, they're probably seething at the idea that they're part of
They're part of the arts. Absolutely.
But, having married to a former automation person, equally they'll say, they are there to facilitate an artistic experience. So
Well,
even though it's
I suppose it's because you're part of a creative process,
Yeah.
aren't you? And so that makes it arts.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a wormhole that we could go down.
Absolutely.
Rabbit hole or whatever you call it, some kind of hole that you go down quite easily. So back to the Make a Difference conference. How many have there been?
This is a third iteration of it.
And has it grown in popularity over?
Yeah, so originally, like I said, it just started from me having an attention issue and not liking conferences and thinking, let me design one that's more interactive. I initially put it out there 3 years ago and thought I might get 20 people, because in the advertising I just wrote, you can't come to my conference unless you do something.
Right.
That's how blatant I am about it. And so I thought I might get about 20 people, and I had a venue in town booked. And it was just, it kicked off.
We had to change venues.
We had to change venues. We had to get a bigger venue. We went to the Albany. And that first one was the recruitment and retention crisis, because that was sort of right out of...
Post-COVID.
Yeah, so you remember what...
weren't coming back, were they? So
Yeah.
We still... I think we're sort of still in that
Yeah.
recruitment and retention thing, but we explored all kinds of topics like pay, which we could do a whole podcast episode on, pay, well-being, which is something that I'm really passionate about. But that was a really exciting conference. There was a lot in it. The second one, we didn't really have to advertise for it, so we did that at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, and that title was Bridging the Gap Between Education and Employment. So it really focused on just that dynamic and just getting the two people to talk. And when we put the ad out, we really only have to do a couple of pushes, and we're at capacity, because we are starting to cap it now, aren't we? Because it's like herding sheep. We have about 100 people. We can at Central we had 100, and it was quite tricky, that one. And we were at Rose Bruford this year, and we had probably had about 80.
Yeah, 80 odd people.
Yeah, and it's good for wide variety. Obviously, there's a lot of education, but there's also industry.
Do a lot of production companies send people down? And
Yeah, we had all of the big players came. I think all of the big ATG 9 Max. Just trying to think now. You're going to have to pull that off the top of my head. But the big players were there. There were some manufacturers there, associations. Beck2 normally come, which is nice.
And are they? And are the producers and some of the big wigs, as it were, are they very open to this as a discussion and the bridging the gap thing and what have you? I know SFP have got a apprenticeship scheme that they've started doing. Are more companies doing things like that?
The vibe on the day is amazing, and of course what they love is because most people, when they get senior, they like the sound of their own voice, but they can actually spend all day just liking the sound of their own voice. It's their conference, they're supposed to do stuff. It's hard to know what is actually outputted from it, but I think I've seen a huge uptake in theatres and venues and stuff, thinking about outreach in particular, but also linking with universities. And
I suppose it's starting the conversation, isn't it? It's getting the ball rolling.
We also have a Facebook group as well, which is getting a lot of traction, and just collecting them all together so that they can post and share stuff. Because one of the frustrating things at this conference is that, like, 2 or 3 people will come up with a really good idea. Do you remember was it Guildhall? Guildhall have got flight cases worth of gear that they have got funding for to take into schools and show schools equipment. And this chap said that at the conference, and I was like, that is the best thing I've heard all day.
But did they do it?
You will.
Yeah, they do
yeah.
do
So
it.
what's happened is several people have now connected with that person.
Right, yeah.
You know, I don't know if I can say too much, but just several companies and people have connected with that person to try and progress that brilliant idea further.
And the other things that we've been doing are trying to give the different sections of our industry a chance to ask the awkward questions. So, for example, people saying, we want to have a complete breakdown from a skills basis of what every graduate can do.
Right.
And every person who comes out of apprenticeship, we want it entirely to be skills based. Then we say, okay, that's what you want, higher education. Why can't they have that? Because this reason. Okay, what's stopping it? What could we do to enable that? And just, even if things aren't possible, even if things are going to be expensive or timely, it's getting it said in one open room so people can go, oh, okay, I thought it would be easier than that. It's trying to break down that idea of assumption of going, well, you're just not doing it because you're not, you're being awkward or you're being uptight. And actually, there are reasons, but maybe somewhere between all of that, there's a middle ground that people can try and find.
Also, if it's in a room of other people, then other people will be thinking about it, which means that other people can come up with a solution.
So one of the things that's kind of become synonymous with the whole conference is loads and loads of post-it notes.
Right.
So Mig had this idea for the first conference of having these walls of inspiration, walls of ideas. I don't know if you want to go into that, Meg, in a bit.
So I write a report on it, and so it was a little bit selfish in that sense that I thought if they write their ideas down, then of course I can gather the data. And I also think it's really exciting to document people's ideas and stuff. So yeah, they just they write solutions down. We write them down so that you can see them. Some people are ideas people. Yeah. And they'll come up with ideas. And what I say at the conference is, it's okay if you're not an ideas person. Me and G are ideas people. We just you can have 100 of them if you want. You can't slow us down. But it's okay if you're not, because what you can do is just jump on someone else's idea and help progress that.
Be a solution person.
Yeah. And that's okay. And I think it's about celebrating the different people. So we talk about solutions and posting solutions and allowing someone else to jump in and say, I can help you progress that. But we also talk about barriers as well. And not doing that negatively and just saying, what's preventing you from doing that? Yeah. Okay. And that's what we do as technicians. That's how we put shows up.
Yeah.
How are we putting this gig up? This is a problem. Right, okay. Heads come together.
Yeah.
We work out.
How do we sort out?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've said for the last few conferences is we don't want people to say that money is stopping us, because we can't control that. We can't get more money. What can we do?
Yeah.
And so far, I mean, just one action point that we've taken on at GSA is this idea that exactly what you said. There are some education institutes where people from the employment sector don't think what we are doing is relevant.
Right, yeah.
So as educators, we have external examiners, people who come in and check that what we are teaching is academically viable and academically current. So the idea was to extend that to industry, to have an industry person come in, an employment person come in and say, right, let's look at what you are delivering and how you're delivering it and what the graduate's going to do, and then offer us feedback about what they think is working and what isn't working. Formalising that position and making it as important as the academic quality assurance, the professional assurance.
So we've got that in place, and we're going to have that as a formal. It's not a paid position, but we're going to have a formal person come in, invite them in 2 or 3 times a year, and hopefully develop a really cool relationship with them.
Good.
And then alternate it around, so you get different sets of eyes, different perspectives as the years go on.
Excellent. So just winding down, When is the next one?
And you were going to ask that. So I've had a couple of expressions of interest from people that are interested in hosting it. So it will be at the end of March, the beginning of April next year. I can't give you the exact date for it, but it will be around that time. What I would say is that if you do see socials or posts about it, it's very, very popular. So I would get in there early if you do want to come along to it.
Brilliant. Lovely. So thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A big thank you to Mig and G there. Really liked that one. The Make a Difference conference is a very important conference which aims to link that gap between industry and education, which is really important, and it's what we're trying to do with this podcast. So really enjoyed talking to Mig and G. Hope you enjoyed that too. If you want to get in touch with us via the socials, it is Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, Threads and YouTube are all Tech Table Pod. If you want to get in touch with us on the email, it is techtablepod@gmail.com. The Make a Difference conference will be back, so get yourself down to it. If you have a view or an opinion, or if you'd just like to check it out, I would advise checking it out. A big thank you to everyone who's listened. The numbers have been fantastic. Big thank you to my executive producers, Mig and G from the Guildford School of Acting, and also my new executive producer, Jade from the Sadler's Wells Theatre. Really happy to have Jade on board with us. So looking forward to working with her. And a big thank you to Stage Electrics for the fantastic microphone that makes me sound brilliant. And that's the end. So once again, thank you. And until then, I shall see you all next week.